Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and today we've got a few different pieces of news actually starting off the day. Bearing in mind as well, I am kind of expecting that we'll hear a Fusion announcement probably later today, especially since they announced the 2x event yesterday. I didn't do a video on it yesterday, but they told us about it yesterday. So yeah, I'm very much expecting a Fusion announcement, so stay tuned later. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've sacrificed a goat so that you get the video on time. All the standard things, of course. But here we go. Let's cover this first of all. It's pretty straightforward, and we already were expecting this. We've got a 2x event for Void Shards this weekend. So from Friday through until, well, the very, very start of Monday. So yeah, on top of that, there is a 10x for Shuzen the Valorous, which is interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. But look, a lot of people tend to be pulling Void Shards here. I mean, we did have a guaranteed event for Seer recently. So I would suspect that any sort of mid or late game players that didn't have a Seer, it's been a long time actually since, it's been 2 months, I believe, since our last 2x Void Shard event. Well, actually, we had the one weekend where there was all 3 of the events. So maybe you pulled in that, or if you were probably a bit smarter, you were planning for a fusion, so you didn't. I don't know. It depends where you are. But there was a good chance you had Void saved up for Seer, and you went for Seer. If you do have any left, it does seem unlikely that Voids will play a large role in the next fusion, at least. So I think you're fairly safe there, right? We would be expecting 2x Ancient Shards to be the next 2x events in about 2 weeks from now. And that should be during the next fusion. Again, we should hear basically confirmation about that, I think, later on today, most likely. So Voids should be fairly safe to pull, and most people would tend to pull them in 2x events early game because those Void epics, there's so many good ones, you just want to get as many as possible. Pretty straightforward. Shuzen the Valorous, to touch on her briefly before you look at the rest of the news, I actually think Shuzen is really solid. She's the newest Void Legendary. She's got really solid ratings across like the tough places in the game. So Arena, Hydra, I think she's probably pretty good for Doom Tower as well. I guess there's no Doom Tower ranking in here. She's a solid champ, right? 30% speed in arena battles aura. It's one of the best auras in the game. That's so strong. 110 base speed, great base stats. She's got the increased speed, decreased speed on a 4-turn with turn meter manipulation. She can give a target ally an extra turn with increased attack, crit rate, crit damage, an instant turn effect, which is really cool. Can remove sheep. I personally think this removing sheep is fairly weak, like as they come back with 0 turn meter and 50% HP and no buffs and everything. So I feel like this is actually pretty weak. It's kind of a novelty, but I actually think the other effect is much stronger. And her A1 can put out block active skills or potentially steal some turn meter. She gets accuracy, so she's gonna have a lot of accuracy. I think she's just really good. You can run her in arena teams, I think, to be pretty effective. She's not S tier, I would say, in arena, but she's really solid. She's definitely a champion that you would use for sure sometimes. I think she's very solid for Hydra as well as your speed manipulator and pumping out extra turns into somebody that needs it, though maybe a bit more manual play required. I've seen some pretty good teams with Shuzen the Valorous. So yeah, I would say we had a 10x for Yumiko yesterday. I do think that Yumiko is better than this champion, and I do think that Yumiko is a champion. I've got one, but you would easily want at least 2 copies of Yumiko. So I think that more people would be pulling for Yumiko than Shuzen. But hey, if you get her during your 2x Void pulls, I think you can be pretty happy, right? If you're pulling in 2x Voids anyway, and she pops out and like, oh, I got the 10x, you're pretty happy. What other news do we have? So, here it is. It's down here. The Forge Pass is back. And it's instant gear this time. So the Forge Pass, the gold pass is $20 to get the gold pass. If you buy, by the way, this pass, it just sort of speeds you up. I think you can even buy more levels after you've bought this. I think you can maybe buy this like twice or something and instantly get to level 50. For Mega Whales, that's actually kind of worth it because it stacks up this, where is it? Oh yeah, the Forge Pass thing here. It stacks up 50% silver and experience from battles. So the silver one is the big thing. So for big krakens that are literally constantly running dungeons the entire time, that bonus silver, it actually makes it's one of the cheapest ways for them to buy silver, as it were. It's quite funny compared to like buying energy packs or something like that. It ends up being more efficient because it's like a multiplicative effect, and if you have it for the whole month, you're good. If you do it for free with the Forge Pass, by the way, it probably takes about 2 weeks, maybe into the 3rd week, to max it out, and then you've got sort of like maybe 1.5 weeks to take full benefit of that XP and silver boost. But of course, you're slowly building it up as you go. So yeah, um, Forge Pass. Anyway, like we're talking about that. The Gold Pass here is actually a really good deal. It's funny. I got in a lot of trouble a couple of weeks ago for saying I actually thought Mythical Champions looked pretty decent. I actually think that's a fun idea. People really hated that. The other two things I've gotten really in trouble for saying in the past, the two opinions were that 20 Sacreds for guaranteed Elva was actually worthwhile. Definitely looking back on that one in hindsight, it was definitely true. Like, she's been absolutely amazing for my account. The best 20 Sacreds I ever spent, honestly, from like, I'm not buying them, I just never use them, right, until there's something insanely good. And then the other thing I got really in trouble for way back when was when the Forge Pass first came out. I was like looking through all the rewards and saying, hey, you know, for 20 bucks, if you're a spender, this looks like it's pretty good actually for 20 bucks. And people absolutely hated me for that. I think it's funny now, a couple of years on, I think, from that I think my opinion back then that got me hatred is basically the generally accepted thing that if you want to spend money in the game, the Forge Pass is one of the best ways to spend it. An interesting thing about it as well, I think this is funny, because it was something I was thinking about when we were talking about mythical champions and how expensive they are. The funny thing is, like, with primal shards being ridiculously overpriced for what they are, then you've got the Forge Pass, which is, for what it is, actually priced quite well. Like, you're going to get this instinct set, by the way, it's pretty solid. I think people dump on it too much. It's like slightly worse in ignore defense than savage or lethal, but you do get a chunk of speed, which is great. Like, speed is something that I've actually come to value very much on my nukers in recent times. So for example, my two most used nukers, so the ones I'd use in live arena, like Rotus, I've got running at like 250 speed. Wukong is like 230, almost 240 speed. Like, I really value speed, so that's actually very, very good stat these days in the meta. When it first came out, this set, it wasn't really, but the meta has changed there. But yeah, like, if you were to go in and spend 20 bucks on energy or 20 bucks on gear packs, and let's say you spent on energy and you ran Fire Knight looking for Savage, or if you spent it on gear packs, even worse, way worse, one of the worst things you could ever buy, you'd get nowhere near the value that you would get out of this. But like, I was going back to my point, though, of like primal shards being super expensive. This is the interesting thing. Stuff being super expensive is actually better for free-to-play players. It's one of those weird things. So like the Forge Pass, because it's pretty good for spending 20 bucks in the game, it's one of the better things you can spend on. That's really good for low spenders. You know, someone that might only spend 10 euro a month, right? Same as a Netflix subscription or something. I guess Netflix is probably more expensive. I don't even know. But let's say that, right? And every 2 months you buy the Forge Pass with that, you know, your monthly budget. Save it up for a couple of months, buy a Forge Pass. You're getting so much benefit. It actually pushes you quite far ahead of a free-to-play player. Pushes you quite far ahead. Whereas bad deals, if you were to spend 20 bucks on primal shards, you would what? Get 2 primal shards, maybe 3, and there's almost no benefit to it. So it's one of those things where good deals are actually not, in a way, they're not really good for whales because they're spending so much anyway. It doesn't make that big of a difference. They're amazing. Good deals are amazing for low spenders because it lets their tiny budget do much more work for them. But then it's really bad for free to play because the people that they're kind of closely in competition with, that they've got a chance against, the low spenders, start to pull further ahead. One of those funny things. I don't think people really talk about that too much. I just thought it was interesting. Small little tip, by the way, guys, the Oktoberfest Dungeon Divers. I have been doing, like I said in my video, might as well do this every day for these things. I'm going to finish this off today. But this is up for like 1 day, 1 hour. So after the reset today, so for example, for me, I could either get up in the morning kind of early at like 7 a.m. or something and do this, or I could wait until midnight. It resets at midnight for me in Ireland, and I could do it after that. If I'd missed 1 day, like, you can still get an extra day in. So there is some like extra time built into this. It's usually how they do these things with like whatever fusion preparation events as well. It's usually the same. So that's something nice in case you are short a day or you missed a day. You can still do that. So watch out for it. Then the other big news is the autumn Equinox Path event, which is going to be running from Friday through to Tuesday, which again leads me to believe this will end on Tuesday. I think then we've got CVC Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think we'll have the next fusion start on Thursday, probably Thursday. So that'd be my expectation for next week. Predictions. But yeah, so this one, again, it's a path event. To do the path, you have to get artifacts, summon souls from soul stones, and summon champions from shards. So the getting artifacts, dungeon divers, basically. This is likely to be pretty bad. It will give you a few extra points, but not many. Most of the points from this are going to come from very limited resources. So summoning your souls and summoning champions. We'll see tomorrow how far you can get, and I'll give you my recommendations. So for me, I did pull some souls for something, but I have been saving for a long time. Whatever the last decent soul event was, I think I did it. I skipped, there was like a soul tournament or something, soul chase tournament. I didn't do that, but I've been saving up apart from that. So I've got a decent chunk saved up. It's not going to be anywhere near enough to max out this path, but it'll get us somewhere. And I'll try work out that for you. Or if you were to, you know, pull some void shards, how far would you get? Like if you're going for the void 10x. If this path ends up being good, in terms of the rewards, I might actually do it. We can see from this little thumbnail here, the rewards, there's going to be barrels, chickens, and mythical tomes in there. I mean, for me personally, I don't value the chickens at all. That's worthless for me. But if you're early game, chickens are obviously amazing, but they tend to be pretty expensive. So we'll see. The barrels are kind of okay, but, you know, not essential. It's just sort of like, you know, a cheap way. If you level someone up in Minotaur up to 6-star and their masteries are done, then you can just use a barrel to get them from 1 to 60 when you rank them up, and it saves you a lot of time and yeah, it makes it very efficient. So that's kind of okay. The mythical tomes are the interesting thing though, because as of now, I believe the only way to have gotten a mythical tome was to spend money. I don't think they've been available for free. I certainly don't have any myself. So yeah, that's interesting. I imagine it's going to be super overpriced, would be my thought. But hey, you never know. I think in the shop, I don't know if there's updated info on this. But like they do sell them in the shop. You never, by the way, buy anything from this bank, right? This is ridiculous. But what is interesting to me is that it is priced at the same as a legendary tome pack. So if that's the case, it might be worth grabbing them. Like, I don't think that the mythicals right now are crazy strong. I think the orc and the sylvan are pretty solid from what I think. I would use them if I had them, but it's really hard to book them. But it might be worth getting them. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. It might be worth grabbing this if it's cheap. But it probably won't be, seeing it's the first. It probably won't be cheap, but hey, you never know. We'll break that down tomorrow. But look, that is the news for this morning. Let me know what you think of these events. Are you going to be participating in any of them? I'm curious. We'll be back probably later with a fusion reveal, I would guess. And back tomorrow, definitely. I'll break down the autumn equinox path and decide. Like, I've got a really big chunk of void shards right now. I've just been saving like a mad thing. And I mean, the last guaranteeds have been 110 voids, so I'm actually way over. So I actually might pull in a 2x voids because I've got like no mercy timer built up or anything. And I wouldn't mind a Shuzan if a legendary did pop out. You know, roll that low dice chance to get her. We'll see. But look, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to click my red dots. Oh, rare skill tome. Only that was mythical. I'll see you all later. Goodbye.